Hello everyone, my name is Zishan. In the recently concluded G20 summit, Saudi Arabia, USA, India, along with Europe signed MOUs for the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, which will save 40% on shipping from India to Europe and making India the hotspot for the rest of the world. This collaboration of giants was the highlight of the summit, sidelining everything else that happened, including the Canadian PM's malfunctioning plane. Saudi Arabian Investment Minister Khalid Al Falih called it the equivalent of Silk Route plus Spice Route put together. White House in its release statement termed it as a gateway to the future, whereas Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it as the largest cooperation project in the history. So why is everyone raving about this economic corridor, including the Indian and the global media along with other important people? What is so special about it? Why is US part of this collaboration, this corridor? And what relevance does it hold in the geopolitics moving forward? Let's unravel the mystery. It all started in 2002, but the real pieces didn't start moving in 2016 when India, Iran, and Afghanistan signed a three-way memorandum of understanding in which $21 billion were committed to Chabahar-Hajikak corridor. Chabahar in Iran and Hajikak in Afghanistan would have given India the passage to fund the development of trade routes into Eurasia. 85 millions were kept aside for the development of Chabahar port and another MOU for Indian industrial investment in the Chabahar economic zone for $8 billion. India also committed $2 billion to Afghanistan for developing supporting infrastructure, including the Chabahar-Hajikak railway, which still holds the potential for several times more trade value by connecting the 7,200 kilometers with a multi-mode north-south transport corridor, which I said was started in 2002 when India, Russia, and Iran signed the agreement for it. This was India's response to China's Belt and Road Initiative even before China started with the initiative. And this move would have strategically put India into the Central Asia, closer to Russia via Turkey. But it all went down the drain. The project failed. Several reasons were cooked up, including financial delays from the Indian side, India-US relation, and the China's aggressive response to the tension in the Malacca Strait, which is the busiest strait in the world and the primary shipping route for China to enter the Pacific Ocean. But India needed a way into Europe. This became another reason for investing in a secondary route from India to the rest of the world, including Europe. Historically, if you look at the map, the naval and the land routes went through the Gulf of Aden into the Red Sea, which further dipped into the Mediterranean, connected by the man-made Suez Canal. Remember Suez Canal, it's really important. The second route was from the Gulf of Oman through the Strait of Hormuz into the Persian Gulf, which again dropped into the Mediterranean Sea, completing the Indian Ocean trade routes to Europe and connecting the rest of the world. However, during the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s, the Strait of Hormuz became dangerous for ships to cross and enter the Persian Gulf, and this meant that the Gulf of Aden and the Suez Canal became the only viable option for trade. It was going all hunky-dory until 2021 when one of the world's biggest ships jammed. Suez Canal, the Evergreen was the ship's name. All are familiar with it. It was making news all over the world. So many memes were coming across it. And it costed 12% of the global trade while holding up trade valued over $9 billion per day, and it lasted for 6 days. This was equivalent to $400 million worth of trade per hour, and the catastrophe became the Achilles heel of the global trade routes and prompted the need for an alternate. Keeping this in mind, and after the faulted plan to expand through Chabahar into Central Asia, going into Europe, India came up with an alternate plan: the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. The Chabahar route would have resulted in 60% reduction in shipping cost and a 50% reduction in shipping time from India to Central Asia. Interestingly, MOUs which India signed with Iran, because of that, India still controls the Chabahar port primarily. So now, instead of entering Iran to move towards Central Asia, it will move towards Jebel Ali of UAE by sea, into Saudi Arabia via road, where rails will take it further into Jordan and Israel. And from there on, utilizing the multimodal transportation, it will transport it further by sea. Saudi Arabia has already invested a lot of money into developing their railway network. And this corridor also ends the dependency on the Suez Canal. I told you to keep this in mind. Suez Canal is a primary shortest route to the Europe. So it's really important. But there's another important aspect which comes into play here, because of which Turkey is also not happy with India, and rightly so. If India would have gone ahead with its initial plan and gone through the Chabahar Hajikak railways, Turkey would have been the biggest stop point. But now it is bypassed. However, the situation in Sea of Marmara is much more interesting than this. So we'll talk more about this, the Istanbul Canal, in another video. Going back to the main topic, Saudi Arabia and UAE have given huge support to India, and India gave the nod to UAE and Saudi Arabia for strategic and also for some other reasons. The other reasons are Saudi Arabia is India's fourth largest and UAE is India's third largest trading partner in the recent years. They both recognized and understood the significance of India's rise in a multipolar world which is brewing up. Historically, though, both were inclined more towards Pakistan, but in recent years, this stance has changed and a shift is seen more prominently. The US, interestingly, has been involved in an active war with China for some time now, and the IMEC, or the Indian Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, is a win for them. To compete against China in Asia, they see India as the only superpower which can stand against them, which can stand against the dragon. And since US is not perceived as strong as it was earlier, the concept of bipolar world, it doesn't exist now. And this was further stamped by Saudi Arabia and UAE when they got admitted into the BRICS, further declaring that they are not just energy suppliers of the world anymore. Both are looking to diversify their economies and reduce their dependency on energy. During this transition period, they seek to fulfill their economic, technological, and logistic needs, and who better to do that than India? India is the country and the economy to look at right now. And USA understand this. That's why they want to remain in the picture. In the beginning of the video, we talked about why US is part of it. This is the major reason. US still wants to be relevant. It is still relevant. It's one of the biggest, rather it's the biggest economy in the world right now. So it's happy to be part of IMEC in some way. And all the moves which India, Saudi Arabia, Europe, UAE, US have made are all correct moves if we see them politically. And together, they have given a thumping statement for the rest of the world. Now, how does this affect the geopolitics of the world overall? Let's see. First, India's geographical position ensures that most of the trade happens or goes through its 13 ports. Second of all, with the IMEC, the economics of trade will make India the leading logistic partner of the whole world. In the very beginning of the video, I told you that this cuts down 40% of the shipping cost from India to Europe, and that's a huge number when we consider the amount and the large quantity of goods which are coming to and fro from India. Furthermore, by ending the Suez Canal monopoly, it has opened new markets, new economic zones in each of the countries of the IMEC. India, UAE, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Italy, Belgium, Greece. These are just some of the countries who get benefited from this. And as I said, there's a lot more potential if we start exploring these routes even more. The route India has planned is also strategically very, very clever. It goes through Central Asia to Europe, which helps it further expand into Black Sea via Turkey, again the Istanbul Canal, which I talked about, and into the Caucasian countries and Russia whenever needed. This corridor makes India the go-to marketplace for the whole world that wishes to get trade done in an economical and efficient way. Now, with IMEC getting more attention and partners, it is going to be the leading trade route once it gets completed. And one cannot deny that India sits in the middle of it all, even after the collapse of the Chabahar deal, the Hajikak-Chabahar route. But there's so much more to be explored in India's context to geopolitics. Its relations with Russia, the Nordic countries, exploration in the Arctic, and the credit line it already has given to Russia, the Malacca Strait, as I talked about, trade ties with Russia, and its expansion into the South American market with Brazil, which is also a BRICS member. There's so much more to explore, so we'll be creating more videos for you. I hope this was helpful and gave you a context why India moved from the North South corridor, which initially was planned, to this economic corridor, to India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, which is going to open a huge port for India. I hope this was helpful. See you next time.